What we're really talking about, and a useful way to think about the metaverse, is sort of this blending of the physical and the digital. We'll see more and more services and more of our time spent in these type of environments.
Hello, I'm Holly Mackay.
And I'm Eshita Kabra-Davies. Welcome to our extra show where we talk about today's insights for tomorrow's challenges.
Yes, whether you're an aspiring small business, a savvy startup, or indeed an established enterprise, we're going to bring you expert thinking on some of the key issues facing small businesses today. So Eshita, tell me what's coming up today.
This week, we're talking about, will the metaverse work, or will other disruptive technologies overshadow it? And then we'll look at 3 steps that could help you prepare for it.
And to help us unpack that really tough question, I'm all ears. We are joined by Jamie McFarlane, who is Head of Research, Innovation and Partnerships at the Royal Bank. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. Great to be here.
So Jamie, tell me, how did you come to be the Head of Research, Innovation and Partnerships, and what's the best part of your job today?
So I spent a number of years before in my current role, supporting a professional services firm engage with their customers around how technology was shifting their behaviours and the requirements from a professional services perspective. When I joined my current role, it's about contextualising and positioning disruptive technology to understand how our customer needs are changing, how financial services is shifting, and how the bank might want to respond to that. And I think the best part of my job really is being able to spend each day thinking about the future, thinking about how the world's changing around us, and really translate that into actionable insight for the bank.
Thanks so much for being here with us, Jamie. So let me ask you our first question. How will disruptive technologies impact the end consumer journey? We've heard about Amazon trialing futuristic delivery services, shopping experiences like the drones that we see or hear of flying around.
Yes, so disruptive technologies are having a profound impact on the end customer journey. So if we look at it through the context of something like the Metaverse, for example, we've seen how much the internet and social media has completely shifted the way that individuals interact, both with each other and in groups, but also with institutions and businesses, for example. And so too, we're seeing the technologies that support the Metaverse do the same. So we've got things like augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, which are changing the way in which we perceive the world around us, how we perceive physical and digital objects. But we're also seeing the emergence of new types of interface, how we interact with technology in the world around us through things like gestures and through screens and through wearables that we might use in our everyday lives. And that's having quite a big change in terms of how we expect customers to not just how we reach new customers, for example, but how we distribute to them and also how we consume. So if we look at how the metaverse and the emerging metaverse is changing the way that, for example, we perceive the world around us, it's all shifting now to a much more immersive experience. It all becomes around helping people become much more immersed in the experience that they are, the journey that they're in. So we can imagine those journeys changing profoundly, using technologies to make that journey feel much more immersive.
Jamie, I'm fascinated. I have to ask you, because I'm sitting here listening to this with a slight Gen X sort of brain fog descending on me. How far away do you think this is, Jamie, from being a day-to-day reality for most of our customers? Because I'm struggling to work out, is it something I need to worry about today, or is it something I can kind of forget about for 3 or 4 years?
So I think to some extent we're all living in sort of mild metaverses as it is.
Okay.
I mean, as I said, I think it's not useful to think of one final endpoint of being all in the metaverse. I think what we're really talking about, and a useful way to think about the metaverse, is sort of this blending of the physical and the digital, where our physical worlds become overlaid or embedded with digital augmentation, and that some of our digital worlds become more physical or more emotional through the uses of things like haptics and community building. So in that respect, I think we're already seeing manifestations of the metaverse through our phones. We often use our phones to sort of highlight through Google Maps, for example. There's an element of the metaverse there, but we also increasingly younger people are using or experiencing the metaverse in gaming universes like Roblox or some of these areas. So it's already here. But I think to your question there, is it mainstream for all of us? I think it's sort of a gradually then suddenly type thing we'll see, where we'll see more and more services and more of our time spent in these type of environments we will suddenly find ourselves like the internet, where we use it all the time, but we've not really quite realised how we got there. If that makes sense.
And is this, Jamie, in your opinion, is this something that businesses should see? Is it all around sort of social and engagement, or is it actually, are you saying it goes to the heart, the commercial heart of how we operate and how we run our businesses today?
So I think if we look at the metaverse, we've got to see it as much more than just a new social platform or a new means of engaging our customers. I think we've got to look at the metaverse as a new way to which we can create, distribute and sort of consume services and products. And that raises kind of really profound questions for businesses about how they maintain the relevance and how they think about their products and services in this digital world. And of course, the metaverse is about being able to do things you couldn't do before, that would be impossible in the physical world. So it's about creating experiences that provide relevance to people and their experiences within it, new experiences that they're having. So I think to think of it purely as a sort of engagement tool alone is probably selling it short. And I think businesses now have to think about, how do their products and services translate to this world? How might they want to change them, and how might they give them added relevance to support experiences in this kind of emerging world?
And Jamie, the metaverse to one side, what other disruptive technologies are there out there today that you think are key for SMEs, or perhaps most interesting for SMEs to explore?
So I think there's a number of things. I mean, if we look at the metaverse, it isn't really a technology in and of itself. It's more a sort of convergence of different technologies that are having an impact and sort of driving this more digital world in which we're sort of merging into. But if I look at some of the big things that are happening today, clearly there's a lot of hype and a lot of engagement around things like digital assets. And by that, I mean not just cryptocurrencies, but things like NFTs and also kind of in-game and digital objects that people might want to transact with and use as sort of social status. So there's a huge amount of activity around those types of innovations that we see. We're also seeing a lot of innovation now around social commerce. So this is where we see the social aspect in commerce coming together in a much more embedded sense. So rather than being separate activities, they become sort of one and the same, and it's much more of a sort of activity in and of itself. And businesses can be built off the back of kind of the social commerce. And TikTok Shop is a good example of that, for example.
So interesting, because my startup, by rotation, is social commerce. We've been dubbed as the Instagram for fashion rental. And it's really interesting because the crux of it really is the sharing economy, getting people to share what they already own. So there's lots of things around sustainability, community, circularity. And I think that's a sort of disruptive technology that I'm kind of thinking more about, kind of relating to this physical world and thinking about solutions that we can create to solve the problems of today. So that's probably what sort of I think is probably more disruptive technologies that we need to see. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think what we see actually in terms of that disruption is not just one technology, but where a number of different technologies support one another. So within that sort of social commerce, you may see things like I mentioned before, digital currencies become, the means in which you transact in that world. We look at things like virtual reality, augmented reality as a means that you can sort of try on and sort of engage with that community in a much more sort of immersive way. So we see that actually a lot of these technologies support and converge on each other to create these big shifts. And social commerce, as you said, is an area that's redefining how a lot of people consume now and how you reach new people.
Well, Jamie, absolutely fascinating. Thank you for joining us in this particular version of our reality today. Over and out. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
So now on to 3 key actionable steps for all small businesses to think about how we implement more modern technologies in our business. And Eshita, the first step is to get up to speed on new tech like the metaverse and how we roll it out and adapt to that in our businesses. How are you thinking about this today?
Yeah, I think it's sort of a mixed bag, right? Like the metaverse isn't for everyone. It's a big shift for all of us and it can unlock a new audience. But you also have to be careful not to alienate your existing audience. And I think about what, this audience, these potential customers or existing customers really want from your business when it comes to the metaverse. Think about how you can take them along the journey, or if there are any other solutions or emerging tech that might be actually a better way to engage them when it comes to disruption in the tech space. That could be a different way to develop your brand. And once you're planned, prepared, really think about optimizing what you already have in the existing presence and offering. So, are you actually looking to enter the metaverse or other emerging techs? Is it to entertain people? Is it to sell products or demonstrate physical hardware in software? So really think about, why do you need to do this with your existing product and service line? And step 2, follow the pack.
I think this is always a really good tip for a small business.
Totally.
Sometimes there's an advantage, isn't there, to the second mover advantage. Yeah. So for me, it's really interesting to look at who your competitors are. What are they doing? What are they doing with these technologies? So I think a little bit of desk work, a little bit of snooping on the internet, and just checking out what other people are doing. But also when I'm just sort of looking across the market, I don't just tend to look in my sector as well. There's a few sort of other groups and businesses in totally different sectors I think sometimes we can learn from. But for me, when it comes to certainly things like the metaverse, I'm going to stick to second mover advantage, because I think it's just such a big topic to get your head around. I think for me, there are more immediate interesting things, such as the coming together of social media for nice chit chat and commercial stuff, and how are those two coming together. That's where I'm focusing on.
Yeah, completely agree. I think we'll probably adopt the same sort of strategy as well.
We might spot each other whilst we're snooping online. I'll check out your business, you can check out mine.
Exactly.
And so, Eshita, the third and final step today is just to be open, isn't it, to new ways of doing things?
Yeah, the digital marketplace, it's vast, and it's new, it's expanding, it's rapidly growing, and there's many different rules and ways of doing things. So really be open to change, and be open about changing even the business or the brand to ensure that you're still relevant today. And as we said, it's far bigger than just the metaverse, which I know is a very trendy and hot topic. Really think about other emerging disruptive technology that we've discussed even with Jamie. So, things like smartware, so Google Glass, or the impact of QR codes that they've had during the pandemic. We're all using QR codes again. And even things like social e-commerce, obviously something that's very close to my heart. Live shopping, which we see on social networks like TikTok. All of it is kind of coming back in a new, modern, digitized way. And I think there's a lot we can do as small businesses to leverage on that.
And that's the end of this episode today. Thanks so much to Jamie for his thoughts on the emerging role of technology in all our businesses.
We're here to help equip you for your business journey, and we hope you found today's episode useful.
And you can find loads more tips and information on the Royal Bank website. That's it for today. Over and out, everyone.